Chapter 18. Rock Stars. As my time in the cinematic and prismatic world of rock stars progressed, I continued to move from one flurry of events into the next seamlessly. I flowed in and out of rooms and up and down the hall in a timeless yet lucid trance-like state, while wide awake and clear. The band was on a holiday for a week to take a rest from all the heavy touring and to do some promotional TV appearances. I was invited to stay on that evening, but told Lucas that I should make a special appearance at home so that my mother would not suspect anything. Lucas wanted me to stay and made me promise to return the very next morning. I had been skipping school, so what was another day? He gave me taxi fare, which I gratefully accepted to get me home and back the next day. It was quite a trek from there to Niedereschbach by U-Bahn and bus. He walked me safely to the taxi and said good night. I told the driver to take me home, in German, to Fulmzig an der Bornhöhe, and collapsed back into a cornucopia of thought. I arrived home late. To no one noticing anything at all was different, because they were all asleep. I crept in, exhausted, bathed, and then collapsed into bed, falling into rich and dreamy sleep, filled with rock bands and rock stars. The next morning, I knew that I had to make it appear that I was going to school, and I knew that I had to go to my first period class to avoid too many absences. So I dressed up a bit, wearing some jeans with my boots and a great black blazer with a cool shirt underneath. I must have looked 20 with my hair and makeup done when I set off to ride the U2 to school with my books and notebooks in hand. For some reason, I almost never used my locker, so after first period, I ended up having to haul my books and notebooks with me everywhere. I stopped in the girls' bathroom to check my hair and makeup before taking off and ran into a friend there named Lisa. We said hi to each other, and she asked me if I was going back to see the band that day. I hadn't seen her there, so I asked her why she wanted to know, and wondered how she knew that I had been there at all. She told me that she had been there the night of the show. "Oh," I said. She made a point of telling me, "I don't like Caesar. He's not a nice person." "What do you mean?" I asked. "Watch out for him. He was mean to me," she said. "What happened?" I asked. "After the show, he took me back to his room and we had sex," she said, rather matter-of-factly. "Did he force you to have sex? Did he hurt you, Lisa?" I asked, ready to confront Caesar if necessary for the sisterhood. "No, not like that. I wanted to do it because he's a rock star," she said again, like I should understand that. "Right after we finished, he told me that I better leave now and he wouldn't let me stay." "I see," I said, as the situation clicked. "You shouldn't have had sex with him, Lisa." "I liked him," she said. I looked at her very seriously and said, "He's the kind of guy that you shouldn't have sex with. I'm sorry that happened. He has been completely respectful towards me." "Well, I don't think you should be nice to him, and I wanted to let you know," she added. "Thank you for letting me know," I said as we parted ways. Apparently, everybody knew that I was there staying with the band. That's just great, I thought inside my own head, purposefully avoiding thinking about the ramifications thereof. Books and notebooks in hand, I left school and walked the short distance to a taxi stand and hopped in saying, "Frankfurt Continental Hotel." The taxi driver, a young man in his 20s, smiled at me and off we went. I had some time to contemplate what Lisa had said to me while I stared out of the window at the promising day ahead. I understood that she felt used, even though she had also used him because he was a rock star. I had known intuitively not to become romantically involved with him. I felt it in my bones. I didn't think she was lying to me, but this was stereotypical rock star behavior on his part. I didn't judge either one of them. She had her reasons for wanting to sleep with him, and they were superficial, even though no one deserves to be treated that way. I resigned myself to non-judgment and observation. When the taxi pulled up at the side entrance of the hotel, I wasn't sure what to expect from the day ahead, as I climbed out, still feeling a little disturbed by Lisa's words. As I walked up the steps, books in tow, there was Lucas on his way out of the revolving door, as though he was waiting for my arrival. He stood there smiling at me and said, "I've been waiting for you. Come inside." We're going to a press breakfast for Anthony. You should come along. I need to put my books down somewhere safe, I said. Okay, just take them with you for now, and you can put them in the room when it's over, because it's starting now. Okay, I said, with no time to think, and off we went to the private breakfast. We strolled into the conference room like rock stars, and Lucas apologized for being a little bit late. I was used to walking around Frankfurt like I owned the place, because it felt like it was my own. Even though I had learned confidence in New Orleans, I was still young and vulnerable. Apparently, this aura around me made an impression, and all heads turned when we entered the room, which I found excruciatingly disconcerting. Anthony was at the head of the oval table, and Lucas purposefully placed me right next to him, with Lucas right next to me on my left. The rest of the table was comprised of about 10 men and women from the German press. I appeared much older than I was in my magical pirate boots and blazer, with full hair and makeup. However, I couldn't have felt more awkward than I did when I put my books under the table on the floor next to me, taking comfort in being, however so briefly, out of sight. There was food, but I didn't partake. The others did. I had some coffee and water. The press at the table began to ask some informal questions of Anthony about the music and the songs. You could cut the sexual tension in the room with a double-edged sword the way that Anthony was looking at me. The dynamic between us was nearly unbearable to my heart, while he responded to the press with easy, well-mapped-out answers. As I continued to wonder what I was doing there, Lucas spoke quietly with me as he endured yet another babysitting session for Anthony, I surmised. I smiled politely when I was introduced to the table and thought I might be able to remain silent for the duration of the event when someone asked me about my role with the band. Well, let's see. I have no idea why I am here or how I fit in with the band, I thought, surreptitiously annoyed. Anthony gulped air and appeared a little thrown by the question. I looked to Lucas and Anthony to throw me a line for assistance as I stumbled through the word I, all the while thinking, I'm just a girl from New Orleans. Lucas swooped in to save me. Cheri is a guest of the band, he said, making it sound very official. Oh, that must be so great for you, said one of the women of the group in a crisp German accent, looking at me rather enviously. I smiled and nodded. Yes, it's really great, I said, hoping to again remain silent. But no, it was not my fate to not be one of the centers of attention at the table, no matter how stealthily I tried not to be. Someone brought up the concept of smoking, as I had nervously pulled my cigarettes out of my purse on the floor and set them next to me on the table. Lucas looked at me, knowing that I had taken a few smoke breaks, and then spoke loudly to Anthony. Inviting the entire table to listen, he said, Tony, you should tell Cheri to stop smoking. Maybe she'll listen to you. She's a singer and it's bad for her voice. She's good, too. She won't listen to me. He was right. I didn't listen to him when he said on a couple of occasions that I should quit. Suddenly, all eyes were on me, and I sat at full attention, empathing the scrutiny almost painfully with a hint of mortification. Then Anthony took a deep breath and made a great show of what he was going to say, dramatically taking another deep breath and enunciating every word very clearly for the display, leading with, when you smoke. It was as though he was preparing to make a pronouncement of some kind. Now all eyes were on him as I swallowed hard. He may as well have been King Anthony, arms held out theatrically, holding everyone's attention as I winced just a little at what he might say next. He turned toward me, speaking loudly to the entire table, looking right at me, relishing the opportunity to dangle me under the spotlight helplessly and swing me around a bit. Everyone was quiet, waiting for what pearls might emerge from his yet unkissed by me lips. Oh, God, here it comes, I thought, with nowhere to run. You, he trailed off. I want to get this right. Smoking is bad for you. You should stop smoking because it will ruin your beautiful, voluptuous chest." His delivery was slow and deliberate, with an emphasis on beautiful and voluptuous, as his eyes gleamed. Holy God, did he just say that to a room full of press and me? He did. He just said that. And like a tennis match, all eyes were back on me, and I could feel the pressure like a physical weight pushing against me as I used the opportunity to duck under the table to put my cigarettes away. There was a rush of blood in my cheeks as I unexpectedly smiled, far beyond embarrassed. All that I could say was, "Oh, wow, you're good. You're really good." Anthony was getting me while the getting was good, in a spectacle that only he could create. He got me back for not keeping my promise to go somewhere and kiss, and then adding insult to injury, going off with another guy. He lorded it over me, relentlessly teasing me, with great pleasure, with the blush in my cheeks, a visceral victory that gave him solace and joy. Just like a little boy on the playground that pulls the girl's hair, this was his way of showing affection. I didn't feel particularly voluptuous at all, so I couldn't figure out exactly how to take what he said. If I could have, without notice, I would have exited the room like a magician and simply disappeared. I didn't blame him for it, because I knew that he was exceedingly put out with me over the entire situation and everything that did and did not happen. He didn't know how sorry I was, and this was payback time. Thankfully, the rest of the breakfast was much less exciting, as the discussion turned back to him, the band, and the music. At long last, it was mercifully ended, when Anthony excused himself and the room emptied of people. Lucas gave me the key to the room, telling me that he had something to do. He said that when he came back, we could go hang out at the hotel cafe, since I hadn't touched a bite. Quite the gentleman, he walked me to the elevator and waited for the doors to close. Like a portal into another world, the trip up to the 22nd floor took forever, giving me time to reflect on everything that had just happened with Anthony. I knew that if he didn't care, he wouldn't have made such massive gestures just to get at me and tease me. But even that was no real comfort somehow. When the bell dinged, I stepped out, books and notebooks in hand, and headed down the hall, when I ran into Bindi leaving an open room. He told me that I might not see him again before he had to go to the next venue. His soulful presence, along with his light, would be missed. I set my things down next to the open door so I could give him a hug. Caesar heard us and peered out from the room to see who was there, as Bindi and I said a heartfelt goodbye in the hall. "You take care now, you hear? It was a pleasure to meet such a lovely young lady," he said boldly, as Caesar watched, smiling, and then disappeared back inside the room. I gave him a hug, saying, "Thank you. You too. I'll miss you." "Believe it or not, I'm going to miss you too," he said, and he meant it as he turned to leave, adding, "And stay out of trouble." "Always," I said, smiling, as I waved goodbye. Bright sunlight was streaming into the open room next to my books, reaching out to me. It seemed like a perfect place to check my makeup, since Lucas's room was on the shaded side of the hotel. I tapped on the door, grabbed my things, and walked in to find Caesar alone, stretched out on the double bed. He was doing absolutely nothing, yet again. His energy was so completely different than Anthony's, and he smiled when I entered the room.